Greetings, everybody. Zach again here with Stormwinds. Welcome out to our 40 Manager training series. What we're going to start talking about here is your 40 Manager itself, the NSE 5 certification. Now, to pass the NSE 5 certification, you have to pass 5 of 2 tests. Your 40 Manager, your 40 Analyzer, your 40 SIEM, your 40 EMS, or your 40 EDR. Any 2 of the 5 will get you qualified as an NSE 5 certification for Fortinet. Now, what we're going to talk about here is the 40 Manager 7.0 certification. It's about 35 questions, 70 minutes, English and Japanese, things like that. However, just be known that I have seen out on the web that 7.2 is coming. Now, there's nothing been released yet of 7.2, and as it does, we'll update our training here. But as the time of this recording, 7.0 is still the mainstay and a viable, available test. So some of you that see, hey, 7.2, what about 7.2? Don't worry about 7.2 yet. Get 7.0 done, get your certification. But just wanted to put that out there for those of you that are out on the net and you do see 7.2. When it becomes official and the outline is available, we will update our courseware here at Stormwinds. Now, some of the things we're going to talk about with the 40 Manager, your initial configuration, some of the wizards that come along with it, some of your administration and management, how you get to the 40 Manager, your device registration, some of your device level configuration installations, your policies and objects, your global ADOMs, and your central management and monitoring, some of the diagnostics and troubleshooting, and some of the advanced configurations. Now, what you're going to see there, and what's really nice, is 40 Manager or FortiGate actually puts a 40 Manager demo out on the web for free. And we're going to show this to you. I'm going to take you out to their demo. As we go through the slide deck, this particular slide deck, I'm going to jump over at the end. We're going to go over to the 40 demo, and we're going to show you everything that I showed you in the slide deck to give you more of a real world idea of what you're going to do. And anybody going to take the test, there's no better teacher than getting on the device itself. I highly encourage you to do it. Poke around, go look at things. Now, some of the initial overview, initial ADOMs, your administrative domains. Your 40 Manager overview, what is 40 Manager? What does it do? What are its capabilities? Why do we need it? What's the difference between 40 Manager and 40 Analyzer? Why do you want to have a manager and FOSS? What are some of the different scenarios between that? Some of the management layers and modules, the network topology, your connectivity ports. There's some definite recommendations out there for us. There's some factory defaults that the setup wizard will use. We'll look at your initial configuration, some CLI options, look at some of your system information, and talk about some APIs. Now, initially, you're going to have a login, and you're going to log in, and you're going to get to a global ADOM. I say global for a reason. This is something that is just part of FortiGate's ADOMs by default are not configured, but you do have a global ADOM. So this is your global administrative domain that you're going to log in when you first log in. So when you go out to 40manager.40demo.com, it takes you out, you log in, demo, it's going to bring you up to this ADOM. So when you initially log in, you can see something along this lines where you see all these different widgets that you can connect into. We're going to show these here because the big difference is this. The 40 Manager, the 40 Analyzer. What I want you to notice there is the manager has the ability to manage devices where the FOSS or 40 Analyzer, you'll hear it termed as FOSS, is really a report generator type scenario. Now, you could do a lot of things in the 40 Manager that you can do in the FOSS, but there's stuff in the FOSS you can't do in the 40 Manager. But the manager is just that. It manages devices. This is where your policy and objects and stuff like that are created, where your 40 Analyzer is going to be more for like your SOC, things on that lines. So let's talk about that real world. So in the networking world, in the security world, you're going to hear network security, you're going to hear cybersecurity, depending upon your organization. You'll have a NOC, a network operations center, you'll have a SOC, a security operations center, and you'll have all these different roles and responsibilities whether you're just an analyst, whether you're troubleshooting, all these different scenarios. So think about what you're seeing here. We can set up an individual. So somebody like myself's been around forever and a day. I'm gonna have full access, full capabilities of being able to look at the reports, at the policies, and all this other fun stuff. Now, some of you guys are watching this video. What I want you to understand is when you first get into the field, there's going to be a lot of look, don't touch. The reason being is you need to get your feet under you and get some experience. And this is why you're here. This is why you're getting your certification. And we all had to go through that. So don't think that's a bad thing. That's just what everybody has to go through. So when you look at these, they have the ability to say, okay, you junior SOC tech, all you need to be able to do is log into the FOS, be able to run reports, generate alerts, generate tickets, run them up to your senior people to get the tickets looked at, things on that lines. Now, if you're over on the network operations side and some of the SOC stuff, you're going to be able to go out into your policies and you're going to be able to generate your rules. You're able to say, hey, this guy coming into this server, this is good, this is bad. You'll be able to geo-block things. You'll be able to permissions from one segment in your network to another, because that security I'm just telling you, I see this all the time from the ransomware recovery stuff I do. People have flat networks. They have no segmentation between different network environments, and the user network gets hammered because somebody clicked on some malware, and there's no segmentation between the server network, and somebody just hammers the server, encrypts the data, and you have an event that you don't want to be in. So you're really able to divide things up in both roles and responsibilities and levels of responsibilities using the FortiManager and the FortiAnalyzer. We're going to focus over on the manager. Now, what they're talking about here, layers and modules. Okay, so global ADOM, this covers everything. So if you have a global ADOM that you're using, and below it you may have different ADOMs, and the reason being for this is you may have a global ADOM and you may have a site in Singapore, you may have a site in Orlando, you may have a site in Sweden, you may have a site in Australia. And that's great. Well, what you can do is actually at the global level is set up global rules that when you apply them, they go everywhere. No questions asked. I see this a lot for block list. So you're going to block, block list. You also hear blacklisting of sites, individuals, countries, things like that just are not permitted into your network. So I see a lot of people, what they do is they know there are certain countries that they're never going to do business with because they're a medium-sized corporation. Maybe they're not international. And nobody from certain, third world countries are going to be having a legitimate reason to hit their websites and such. They just block it. They block everything. You can't, if it's sourced from there, you can't get to it. And you could do that with a global rule and say that across all your environments. Now, what you can do is drop down into a more of a ADOM level. So if you look and you create objects, they can be specific just for your local ADOM, or you can make them global. So if you update them globally, it updates everywhere. Or if you update them in your local ADOM, they are only local specific to your ADOM. So you break it down into your local ADOMs, your local administrative domain. So if you see here, they have two, ADOM 1, ADOM 2. So this here has policy folders that inside this ADOM are only specific to devices on that ADOM. So ADOM 1 may be device 1, device 2. ADOM 2 is device 3, device 4. So if you update an object on ADOM 1, not the global, ADOM 1, it will only push that object update down to devices 1 and 2. It does not push the update to objects 3 and 4. So this really starts to allow you for segmentation of your network, administrative segmentation, different rules and responsibilities and things along that lines that you can do. I see this done where you have a larger management platform, so to speak, footprint, whatever you want to call it. And then they set up ADOMs for different companies. And even inside those companies, what they do is they can create different device policies and such. So this really allows you to get granular on your responsibilities, but it also allows you from a single pane of glass, a single platform, to manage your entire network. That is the key to a FortiManager. Now, some of you guys may be newer to the FortiManager, but you've managed FortiGate devices and you're like, well, I can just do this from my FortiGate firewall. You're absolutely right. You absolutely can. 100%. You're absolutely spot on correct. But this is in more of a enterprise level management mentality is what you're looking at here. So this is kind of a topology is what we're talking about. So if we look there, you have a FortiGate firewall in the middle. You have 5 sites that are VPNs. You have 5 different sites. They may be site-to-site VPNs. You have VPN users, so you may have some type of SSL VPN. They all connect through the firewall through a DMZ that segments out from the server network up top to the end user on bottom. So if you look there, you may have 5 site firewalls. You have your external firewall. You have a DMZ firewall. You have an internal firewall. All those can be managed from the FortiManager on the bottom left. This stops you from having to go in and say, okay, what did we do over in Australia? What would we do in the UK? You just log in here and you can get everything from a single place. That is the power of the FortiManager, and this is why you should use it. Now, to get into the FortiManager, there are some basic ports that you're going to use. So this list is your connectivity ports. This is what you're going to use to connect in, and also what the FortiManager listens on. So you will use this to configure between your external connectivity, internal connectivity, and connectivity between your various devices into your FortiManager itself. Now, external connectivity, when you first boot up, you have the ability to do HTML, HTTP, HTTPS, ADM 443, SSL at 22, and then SSH at 22. I'm sorry. So you can connect in and then ping's active also. That is how you will initially connect your FortiManager. Now you can enable that connectivity from the outside, from the inside, whatever interface you want to do that from, a management interface, things along that lines. What I find in the more secure environments is you cannot manage from the outside world. That is not possible. All they do is they limit the management from the inside only, and sometimes only from certain jump boxes, things along that line. So you can set all that up in your environment to ensure that not only is the individual in, they have to have the ability to get in the proper subnet or VLANs to manage your network. So what you're going to do, some recommendations, you're going to deploy to protected and trusted private networks. Right. You want to use HTTPS and SSH, not HTTP. You want to configure trusted host to restrict access in. If you do allow from the outside world, you restrict it to only the necessary ports that you saw in the previous slide. You do not want to allow just anybody to hit SSH and HTTPS. You want to try to restrict that as best as you can if you're going to allow it from the outside world. Secure passwords and policies. Secure passwords. Your 8.3 or 8 character, that's no longer acceptable. That can get hacked pretty quick. So what you're going to do is run some type of 15 character or more. A lot of places are going to passphrases and 2-factor authentication, and actually using some type of authenticator app on your phones. There's things like Duo. You can do SMS text. There's a whole herd of different things that you do. And we'd highly recommend you do 2-factor authentication when you set this up. You want to look at your event logs all the time, preferably some type of SIEM. The reason we use a SIEM or SIEM or however you want to pronounce it, your security information and event manager, is it can do your log filtering for you. As a human, it takes a lot to look through. And when you're using what we call eyeball Mark 1, errors. We look over stuff, we get tired, we get distracted. The SIEM doesn't do that. SAML SSO, this is your single sign-on stuff. This is what we kind of talked about. Also, we must register for our SAML. We must register the FortiManager up on the FortiCloud for that type of connectivity. Now, out of the box, what you're going to see is a quick start guide that you can download from FortiManager out on the web. Your initial connectivity, port 1 is your management one by default. Your IP, 192.168.1.99, which is /24 for you subnetting guys. Connectivity is ping, HTTP, HTTPS, SSH. Admin, no password. This is your default out of the box. Now, this will change if you're setting up some type of VM. Set up a VM, your IP is going to be different based upon the VM host that you set it up on. Now, when you initially boot up, you're going to get a setup wizard. It's going to walk you through to change your password, change your time zone, and specify a host name. Why host name? Why is this important? Well, your certificates. So this is a browser-based admin. So what you do there is you have a digital certificate. A digital certificate requires a host name. So a lot of us, you see the normal, this site can't be trusted. You got to go advanced and trust things on that lines. That's when you're doing HTTPS, whack, the default IP address, not the host name. When you put the host name up, you can create a certificate, self-sign, some type of CA, depends on where you're at. And that is why you're going to create a host name. You're going to find your interfaces. You're going to find your admin access. You're going to find your DNS and your default gateway. So interfaces, what's our incoming and outgoing at the minimum? Admin access, what type of admin access are we going to give it, and who and what port is that going to come in on? DNS, domain name service, so we have to be able to resolve our FQDNs. And our default gateway, how do we get off our network? So this is our doorway out for people that are kind of new to the networking realm. This is how you get outside of your network. Some of the things you're able to do, command line. So you really need to focus and get comfortable on command line. Some of you guys I know are all GUI based. You're breaking your, cut your teeth, so to speak, in the GUI world. That's great. That's phenomenal. Learn command line. Because if the GUI goes away and you can't do basic CLI stuff, you will be stuck and you will be at a disadvantage. And a lot of times the command line, quite honestly, gives you more accurate information in a more condensed, so to speak, screen. Some of the different things, you'll see you get system status, your show system interface, DNS, NTP, get your NTP, show your system route. So we'll show these. So you're showing your system information. So here, what we're going to do is you can see all your system information, your name, your serial number, all that type of stuff. This is vital when you're going to open up a case with FortiGate, because they're going to look at your serial number to identify who you are, what licenses you have, and things on that lines. You're going to be able to look at your interfaces here. As we see, there are two interfaces. One's going to be for inside and one's going to be for outside. So this slide here, we see our DNS for our domain name service. So we see our DNS servers where we set our DNS servers. Now we're going to be able to look at our different types of settings here with our NTP and such. Now you can find all this information also over in the GUI. Now what we have here is a system information tab in the GUI, which is going to look at our IOPS, or input output, memory utilization, things on that lines. You also have a system information tab in the GUI, which basically, if you look at it, is the same that was in the CLI we just looked at. And we'll pull this up here a second in the demo so we can walk through this. And then you have your different APIs, your application programming interfaces, which allow you to integrate, write different types of APIs to touch into your FortiManager and be able to jump over and pull information from your FortiManager yourself if you're writing some type of API. So some of the things we talked about here is initial ADOM, some of the overviews, things on that lines. So let's jump over on the demo box. I'm going to show you some of this stuff real time. Again, so over here on the demo box, this is FortiGate's free demo that they provide for you. And what you get here is your 40 manager, 40demo.com. It will bring out here, as we can see, this is a VM. And it's demo, tab, demo. So this is our global ADOM. So we're not configuring ADOM here. This is our global ADOM. We'll go into the normal ADOM. So here is all of our information. Now, we can go here. What I want to cover is basically what we did before is we can go up here. This is our CLI. So our command line is up here. You can also SSH in and get CLI, but you have a prompt here. A question mark lists out your commands. So the big thing is your show commands. This is what we wanted to look at. So if you do a show, question mark, system, question mark, and you see how you just go through each time and you do a question mark. So show system DNS, question mark, we hit enter, there it is. This is something that you should really get used to inside of not only FortiGates, but all different types of firewall vendors. They all typically have some type of thing similar. The question mark is universal on majority of vendors. So again, show system NTP. When we look at NTP, network time protocol. Now, if you look here, this is how FortiGate configures stuff. So you want to configure your system NTP, then it's configure NTP server, then you edit the first one, you set the server address. This is pretty much standard. So when you're over on the GUI doing stuff, this is what it is sending to the FortiGate itself, or the FortiManager in this case, when you send those commands in. Now, if we come up here on the right, we look at our process monitor. Again, your drop down under demo. We are in FortiManager v64 722. There is our build. We got a process monitor. Here we go. So this is our CPU. This is our utilization and our process IDs of what is running in the background. We can look at our memory percentages. Again, we have a graph here on percentages. We have our memory bytes, how much is being used, and our disk IOs. So this comes important when you're using, especially in the enterprise environment, and you have a box that you're using to manage stuff, and then you expand it out in another country, you bought another company, you brought them underneath your management umbrella, and you start to see your utilization here start to peak at, way higher than what you would like, and it's time to upgrade and get your bigger box. So this here is just a generic overview of those types of settings. It's pretty quick to look at to see where you are in that respect. Now you come here in your system settings. So here it is. Remember you did show system? So we'll go here. And we don't want to do all threes. So we'll show this. So we do show system. Whoops. So what do we want to do? We want to do show system. All of our information is here. So all this here, you can go down here and pull all this, show system routes, and all this is here. When you go back over here, it's the same information right here. Host name, there's the serial number. This is a VM. This is a standalone. We are not in HA. This is our system time. This is our firmware. This has no backup. 3 admins are logged in. This has been up for 8 days. Here's something for you. This is a demo. It's been up for 8 days. So don't be surprised if you log in and the demo is down. Give it some time. It will recover. So in the license information here, Remember we said you need to register for FortiCloud. Right here it is. It's registered for FortiCloud. There is no VM metered service. It's not licensed. Different types of VDOMs, APs, logging devices, switches. All this is on here. We go look at our network. Here we go. This is our internal network. And this is where they won't let us configure it here, but we look here, here we go. HTTPS, HTTP, ping, SSH, SNMP, and web service. All right here for administrative access. So if I'm on the inside of my network, I would configure HTTPS 10.88.210.253 on any of those, and I can connect into this device. That's what they're talking about here. They have not renamed the port. The port is still named port 1, but you can name it like inside, outside, whatever you would like to name it. We have an external port here. We'll view it. Same thing. No IPv6 though. Most places do not use IPv6. We'll come down here. Here's our DNS. The 2 DNS servers. So remember we did the show system DNS? It's the same thing. Show system DNS. There they are. 208.91.112.52. 208.91.112.52 and 53. Our routes. So our internal and external. This isn't really labeled that way, but in the real world, you would do that. Port 1 is your default gateway is this. Port 2, your default gateway is that. You can also set up packet captures, but they don't have one listed here. So just want to kind of run you through that real quick, show you that all this that we talked about is back up here inside of the GUI itself. So we'll wrap this video up here real quick with this, but that's a quick rundown of kind of your initial configuration. You have to be able to have internal and external connectivity for traffic to flow. You have to have the internal and external ports set up so that you can configure your rules. All that has to be done before you can set the firewall up to pass traffic. So with that, guys, I thank you for coming out. We'll talk to you soon in the next video.